Well, hi, and it's really good of you to join me. Thank you. And you you're the base leader at Kiev, which is a fantastic base, isn't it? I've been there, but years ago. A big training center right on the river, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful place. So we are started in 1993 with a vision for a Christian university when the communism just fell down. So that was something completely out of people's perspective and minds as a possibility. And right now, we are training based, but at the same time, very heavy on evangelism and mercy ministry, always have been. And it was something that God would always speak to us, that never turn one priority over another one. So always be that, like that the SBS students would be running soccer together with the orphans, and never forget why they're learning Bible and what it's there for.
Well, it's a big base, and you've trained a lot of people there, and now it's quite different. But you're not there, are you? And
No.
that's a bit of a surprise, I think, to you and to me. So maybe you can explain that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually so we've been leaders there for 12 years now. And I remember in 12 years, we had now 3 times when we had to sit down and do plan A, plan B, plan C. And because, 93, we got our independence, but then in 2004, we had our first revolution. And then in 2013, we had our second revolution. And this was the time I remember we sat down and said, like, okay, plan A, because all the action was in Kiev. And so we had to be very mindful as to, okay, we have foreigners, we have young people, we have students, we have preschool, we have school. Like, what do we do with all of it? Like, what is our plan A, plan B? And at that time, we've decided we're going to participate very actively because the freedom of our organization was on the line. We were talking about freedom for foreigners, freedom for foreign agencies, freedom for religion, freedom for education, all that stuff was on the line there. So I remember sitting and saying, okay, plan A, and they only stay downtown Kiev. We can just go there, participate in the protests, and come back. Plan B, if the shooting will start, we'll bring the wounded to our base and tend to them. And we did get to plan B. And plan C was like, if military comes in, this is the bag you grab and you run. So we didn't get to plan C. So then in 2014, when annexation of Crimea happened, when troops came into the east, we again said, okay, and plan A, plan B, plan C. And we didn't get to any of those plans because it kind of remained all in the east and in the south. So then when COVID hit, with the same thing, we're like, okay, plan A, plan B, plan C, what do we do? And so then in December last year, we sat down and we're like, okay, we hear all these threats about the war, and they are escalating. And at that point, we had 5 visiting teams at our base in December that were freaking out, asking us a lot of questions. And so I remember us sitting in plan A, plan B, plan C. And one of the things was like, okay, if plan C was if war will start in Kiev, if it will get to Kiev, like, and in our minds, it was, moving from the east towards Kiev.
Right.
And so then we asked all of our staff, we have 50 staff right now, we asked each one of them to submit us those plans. Okay, plan A, plan B, plan C, what will you do? And so we were sitting down. I remember even laughing, sitting like, we can't believe that it's third time with the same leadership team that we have to come up with those ABC plans. And as we were sitting down in a circle, we did realize that 3 of our leadership team members will decide to remain in the city, even if the troops will come in to Kiev. And then many of us, especially the ones with kids, we have agreed that we will not be in the country, or at least not in the Kiev, somewhere in the west of Ukraine. So then when January hit, no, actually it was already February, because we had a leadership training LT meeting planning in Chernihiv, which right now is a completely destroyed city. So we spent a wonderful week there planning for a year, praying through everything. And And so it was February. We decided that let's take a 3 weeks off all ministries. We could afford. The only ministry that was going on was preschool and a school. We have a school up to 8th grade. So those were the only ministries that we could not stop. But the rest, we said, let's stop. Everybody, like the parents were emailing us, the donors, the sponsors were emailing us. All the teams by then were gone because foreigners and that. So we just said how everybody just either go west to the western base in Ukraine, Ternopil, or go and see your family, spend some time, come everybody down. March 20th was our quarter that was supposed to start for schools. I was supposed to lead the School of Worldview, and we were also supposed to start the School of Biblical Studies. So we're like, okay, beginning of March, everybody come back. If nothing will start by then, it's just going to continue be these threats, and we know how to live on these threats. That was not the news for us. So I took 2 of my kids and we came to United States. My husband is American, so
Two of how many?
Of 3.
Okay.
Now, so this is our family. We were always fighters. We've never escaped anything. All our kids were participating in all our ministries, and so we had quite a bit of conflicts over leaving or staying. So our oldest daughter, which is almost 18, she said, "No way am I leaving. I am staying. I'm going to be here. All of this is just threats. We need to be here." So I took the 2 younger ones, 15 and 10-year-olds, and we came to United States. And Kyle, my husband, stayed in Kiev with our oldest. And
so how did you feel when the actual hostilities broke out? It must have been awful, huh?
It was horrible from a shock.
Yeah.
I think that was the worst, is the shock that it actually happening in Kiev.
Right.
We did not expect it.
No.
We did not, and we actually found out from the news before our people found out, because I remember, because it was still an evening here, I remember hearing Putin's speech about starting military operations in the Ukraine. And I remember calling our guy. He was staying in our house watching our dog. Yeah. And I remember calling him and saying, like, "Hey, Putin just declared war against Ukraine." And he's like, "No way, everything is okay here." And we're like, "Well," and he said he hung up. And a minute later, explosions, because our house is close to the airport. And he's like, "The house was rumbling," and he's like, "I thought that was it. I thought I will not, I will die here along with your dog," because nobody was, it was 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. And so he said it was the closest fear for him. But then as he, got out and drove to the base, and so then, as I told you, everybody submitted plans to us about what they're going to do.
That was so wise, huh?
Get everybody. And I mean, we did some other precautions. We stock up on food. We stock up on fuel. Our base is really self-sufficient with water generators. Natural, even if natural gas goes out, we have wooden stoves. So we were thinking, like, if anything happens, the only thing we do not have is bomb shelter. That was the only thing that we realized that it was really life-threatening. And we did encourage everybody actually to leave the base. We said that because of the bomb shelter, you won't be able to help a whole lot, and you won't be able to even be safe yourselves. But anyways, as the plans were submitted, we knew that 7 of us will stay. 7 of our people on the staff were deciding to stay back 2 months before everything started. So we contact all our staff. Like, that was the first thing we did. We start calling. What are you doing? Where are you? How are you? And as we were calling, we knew that the 7 are still remaining, and they prayed again, and they said, "We feel like God is saying that we must stay, and we want to stay. We understand all the risks. We understand all the threats, but we stay." So then me and Kyle, we told them, "Okay, if you're staying, then from our side, we will do everything to make sure that you're provided for." So the supply lines, the finances, the cars. So from the second day hitting, we bought new vehicles. We sent trucks in. We built a whole network around Europe, which I am absolutely amazed by
It's amazing,
YWAM
isn't it?
family and how fast it is amazing. How fast, being building relationships over the years. I was able to call so many people within one day.
Yeah.
One day, we bought 4 vehicles in one day, and they were on the way to Kiev.
How did that happen? And I read that and I thought,
Yeah.
really, where did they get the money that fast? How did that happen?
Actually, but this is the good thing was of us being here. As much as I felt so guilty for not being in Kiev. I've never left through any of the protests and revolutions we had. Actually, was very active
Yeah.
Participant of all of it, because I'm Ukrainian. I love my country, and I love the path we're on to freedom, and I believe to God's kingdom, not just democracy. I believe God's values are being established over the past 30 years, and I'm not oblivious to our problems. Please understand me right. That is why I'm on the streets. I'm not oblivious to our problems, but so the initial emotion, overwhelming emotion, was guilt. I remember calling our former base leader, crying on the phone, saying, why am I not there? How can I leave my team? How can I prefer my safety to the calling that God gives me? You have all these thoughts, overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. Am I not sacrificial? Am I too scared for my life? But then we did realize of what a value we were here, because the community here in United States picked up a need immediately, pouring money in. And we did have some capital money saved. I'm not saying that we were completely on a zero. No, we started with some. So we right away put money on each person that remained there, all 7 people. We right away transferred money to them, making sure that they have, and we did have cash stacked there as well. So we said, this is where you go, this is where it is, this is where everything is, hooking up with a satellite phone. 4 vehicles we bought, not even from a YWAM family, actually. It was people I have never met before, Czech Republic, Bethel Church. And through some connections, actually, I was helping one of the friends to find a place to live as they were escaping the country, and they wanted to go to Czech Republic. So I started to calling, and finally got a hold of this community that we still are very closely working together.
Great.
These about 15 brothers from Czech Republic, fearless, with bringing fuel to us, bringing food, especially first couple of weeks when everybody was too scared to go to Kiev. And actually none of them drove all the way to Kiev, but they would bring stuff to Ternopil, and then our guys would come and pick them up from Ternopil. So that was our job. Our job was, it still remains, to be the public speakers, to raise finances, and the supply lines, to make sure we find everything from everybody and that gets to Kiev.
We found here, there's a friend of a friend phoned and put me in touch with a couple who are wanting help. They own and operate a small airline, I was told. It's actually, I think it's a charter company, but they have large business jets that they, up to 30 passengers or even more. And they were just wanting to take food and whatever supplies were needed out as quickly as possible. So we helped them load a plane up and get the manifesto done, and they landed. They couldn't go on into Ukrainian airspace, but they landed in Romania, and the goods went in. Everybody wants to help.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah. Yes, it is absolutely true. I get phone calls now. We are working to the extent of 2 trucks a week, 2 food trucks a week going to Kiev. Right. And before, like when it's just happened, we were feeding up to 1,000 hot meals per day.
Oh, wow.
of giving people, because hot meals, people were in subways, people were, they had no access to kitchens or anything like that. Then slowly, and we had 6 vehicles that were evacuating every day, from Kiev, from outskirts. Then we moved to Chernigiv, then we moved to Bucha. Then now we're more on to the east with our evacuating crew. But Lynn, it's boys, 19,
Yeah,
20-year-olds, 21 is the oldest that is driver that is going into places. But we did make a rule. We ask that everybody who is a parent is not there. We said, like, would you
right.
please, unless there's some, so we don't have any parents among our team in Kiev. Oh yeah, and we did connect then with David Cunningham, and
Yeah,
he connected us with a very professional expert. I'm not gonna say his name, but he came in to train our guys on how to evacuate. He's had a great experience of extractions from people from
well, good.
Afghanistan, and so he's been training our guys on safety. And because
Great.
as Sasha said, he's like, your guys are adrenaline junkies. I'm like, that's the only way to live for them right now.
That's right.
Is on
Stay
adrenaline.
alive. What is the most threatening thing that's happened, and what time did that happen? Because we know it seems they were trying to actually take Kyiv, and they were not able to, and so they did some missiles, they did some artillery. Did anything land on your base, anything near, or how have you been?
No, actually, first months, 30 days, you would always be in a constant tension, because for 30 days they kept on trying and trying and trying to take over Kiev. And just for those that have never been in Ukraine, everything is gated here. Everything is fenced in. We don't have open property. So our base is actually surrounded by cement walls and a locked gate. So so that kind of does give us a little bit of safety feeling.
Yeah.
But with the missiles, of course, and the air raids, and those were, every night you just prayed. For me, it was, through the day, half day at about 4 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock, I'm on my knees, and I understand this is the nighttime for Kiev. And my parents are still in Ukraine. They live not too far from Kiev. So I was on my knees every day saying, please,
Yeah.
Lord, like save and save us and save Kiev. And because I knew that was a tipping point for a war itself, right? And they understood that as well, that taking over Kiev would be a victory.
Yeah, yeah.
So it definitely every night was threatening, and then even during the day was threatening. They did come in Brovary, which is about I would say how many miles? Kilometers. We're thinking it's about half an hour ride away from the base, and some missiles did hit our locations, like near to us, but not our base.
Okay. All right. Well, what do you expect now? There's a lull in the fighting as we record this. Maybe as people are listening to this, it will be farther down the road, but it looks like they are repositioning their troops to try to take the south. And some commentators are saying they expect then to close in on Kyiv again, but from the south. What do you expect?
Lynn, from very beginning, the word that the Lord gave me, it was from Ephesians chapter 6. When the evil comes, know how to stand, and then going through it, keep on standing. So for me right now, we are in keep on standing against evil.
Right.
Although it might look for Kiev right now like it's a bit of a break, and we need it. We for sure, I mean, everybody needs it. We all pray that it would be over. But this is the time of keep on standing against evil. Because it's still attacking. And I do realize there's scheming going on, right? The enemy is scheming. He's scheming behind, he's thinking, he's strategizing, and it's both spiritually speaking and physically speaking. They're trying to strategize, they're trying to do the land path. Right now, Mariupol is like Kiev for me. In my prayers, Mariupol is Kiev. I just keep on praying that they do not overtake it, because it would be a tipping point. It would be a tipping for the war. So that is in my prayers as a battle. Practically speaking, I want more sorry, I want more weapon for Ukraine. That's
Yeah.
practically speaking, this is my personal prayer is I do believe that God puts army in order to do justice on earth and to do order and protection and safety. So I pray a blessing for our army, for our military guys, that they would be supernaturally equipped and protected. And so for me, speculating from here, of course, right now the efforts will be on the East, and our efforts is on the East as well, with humanitarian aid and with evacuation efforts too. But at the same time, we, as yeah, it's just heartbreaking to see what has happened around Kiev, and I'm sure you've seen the news, you've seen the images. To realize that it is happening as we speak right now in the East is heartbreaking. To realize that this is what it looks like. It has no rules. It's not a war of dignity of any kind. It's not a war over power. It does not have values. It does not have rules of war. Of course, you know, all these war crimes that are already recorded, and to realize that it's happening to the people in the East right now is pretty bad. To see how the city after city, town after town being destroyed is like, why? It's should not be happening at all. So my expectation is to stand in Mariupol, stand strong, and to have the victories in the East.
As we've been reading the reports, and we're really grateful for Al Akimov and others, and I know you're helping to provide those reports too, we hear a lot of stories of people being very receptive to prayer and really wanting to have a stronger faith. And I think in times of suffering, people go one of two ways. They either become really angry at God, blaming him for what human beings are doing, or they become soft in heart. Do you have a feel for how the people are responding to this?
I honestly feel that people are responding soft, and we've always been. Ukraine was always a God-fearing nation. You know, we are Orthodox, of course, in our majority, but then Catholic in quite a bit as well. So there's always been there's always been a fear of God, in a good sense, an honor to him. But I do feel that we are on the softer side. Of course, there are people that, but I think it's our hope. You know, this is where our hope lies. Because if you become angry with God, then you have nowhere to put your hope in.
Absolutely.
Then you should just finish. And so that's why I do believe that Ukraine is on the soft side, because of that's the only hope we have. And seeing the world leaders' responses, we are grateful for some, but then for some, we do realize that they could have done more, and yet nothing is happening. We are on our own with God. So that's why I think the softness, what helps is what else do you have? You have no one else but God to help you and to stand with you through this time.
You know, after the Soviet Union crumbled, and Ukraine became recognized again as a separate nation. And by the way, I was there before that happened, and we could see the hunger. Actually, the years of atheism had created an incredible hunger in people because their spirits were dry. And we met people who just wanted to know more. And then when it crumbled and there was freedom of different sorts, churches began to grow at a dramatic rate, and many people declared themselves to be Christians. And I read recently 71% of Ukrainians self-identify as Christians. And I think many people have heard of the large churches, and in some ways, maybe the Ukraine is the most Christianized of quite an atheistic continent with Europe. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, I was a part of a church that was 20,000 people.
Wow.
In early 2000. It was led by a Nigerian pastor, good intentions. The church is not there anymore, and then he did not end up very well in character-wise. But I was one of the hungry. I got saved in the late 90s. I did not grow up Christian at all, not a Christian background or family, but that's when I gave my life to Jesus, knowing the choice I'm making. And I've seen lots and lots of Christians around me. And I think, we never were an arrogant nation as Ukraine. We always realized our weaknesses and our dependence on God. And I think that's what kept the hunger, is that inside we knew we are not self-sufficient. We never felt like I think that's a big difference between, if you take the three nations with Belarus and Russia and Ukraine, is Russia always had that domineering,
Yeah.
I don't want, I want to be careful, but that domineering arrogance and pride that we are mighty.
Oh, yeah.
And
History just shows that that's not
yeah.
arrogance.
And I honestly think the only way the propaganda lives there, it's because it is rooted in that domineering arrogance and the might and self-might that they have within them. Because if you look at Belarus, they have Lukashenko was there as long as Putin, and is very similar in regimes and in the way of doing the government. But yet the Belarus people do not believe the propaganda. They are controlled out because of fear, but they don't believe the propaganda. You ask them, and 90% say we do not want to fight Ukraine. Yet Russia, you ask, and I'm not going to say 90% of Russians, but a majority say we want to fight Ukraine. They should be ours. And I do believe that the only way the propaganda lives there is because it is rooted and founded into, we are mighty, and we can, and we should, and why not, and how can they not? And so it's rooted in that dominance and in that desire. So Ukraine, I think the hunger and the growth of church and the response to God was that we never were self-sufficient. We always knew that we needed God, that we are not God.
Well, that is a very significant observation. I understand that also there were a lot of Ukrainians going into other Slavic nations as missionaries prior to this, and now it's a bit like Acts 8, isn't it? The believers are being scattered everywhere, and we need to pray that they preach the gospel wherever they go, like they did in Acts 8, and that new believers and new churches spring up. Do you have any news on that? Do you have any idea of what's happening with the many people who have been displaced?
I'll tell you, over the years, we always had these people that would come in and say, revival will come through Ukraine. And I always thought of course, it's nice to say when you're a visiting person, a guest to a nation. But now, unfortunately, the revival is coming in a different way through Ukraine than I would wish it was coming. Yeah. But it's definitely reviving Europe. It's reviving United States, even to a point of what do you believe? What do you stand for? As far as Christians scattered, Christians that I know, pastors and churches that contacted me personally, are definitely on a mission. They are not there to sit still and not do anything and to mope. They are there to preach the gospel. Of course, majority wants to come back. We are hoping that very soon we can go back to our nation and continue what we are doing. But even with that, we are on a mission for sure.
Well, we're just about out of time, but let me return back to you and your situation. You've got a family that's separated from one another. Can you make any plans? Do you have any plans, or you're waiting to see?
Well, actually, Kyle did come. He's here with Bianca, our oldest one. We are together. We are going back the end of May. Our oldest daughter is graduating, and she's determined to graduate together with her class, although they are all over the place. None of them stayed in Kiev in Ukraine. So they will meet up in Budapest, but then we are planning to hopefully go back. We're planning to make our way to Kiev, see my parents, see our base, and then we'll decide from there as to what would it look like for our children, of course.
Great. Well, just before we started this conversation, Anya, I got word that we had quite a lot of trouble with our online bank making mistakes with us. but we finally got word that they've released the money that we've seen come in. We've seen quite a lot of money come in to buy more vans to get more people out, because at this point, evacuation is the great need, isn't it? And of course, food and the other necessary items at the borders is also very important. So we've got a team now in Poland on the border, and we've got another exploratory team going in on Monday to Moldova, and we've been helping out in Romania. But we're just one of the many, many, many YWAM centers. And I think again and again, where there's a YWAM center, then everybody around them wants to help. So we keep praying for an anointed logistics operation so that everything gets what it should be.
And Lynn, I heard this phrase, they said, like, we are as like little ants, each brings a bit, but then we make a huge hill. And this is what we are seeing, a huge hill of many, many ants around that are doing their job and not being indifferent and continuing to hold us in prayer. Although it's a 50-day today. Today is the mark of 50 days. Yeah. And so it's for 50 days, I still have people that are saying, we're here, we're praying, we're not leaving. Because I do, very last thing I'm going to say, I do believe that right now as Christian body, we need to respond in two ways. One is a prayer, of course, we pray. And another one is a hand of relief to the suffering. Right. We have to do whatever we can to relieve the suffering that is happening right now.
All right. Well, God bless you in your work, and we'll carry on with our work, and we'll be those little ants that each do our bit. And we'll talk again, okay? And when you have time, I'd love to just get up to date with you again in a week or two, okay? Yeah. Thank you. It's been excellent.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Okay. Bye-bye then.